On this edition of Army Reserve Today, Global Medic kicks off, giving soldiers the opportunity to work in real-world situations.
What we really do here with those trauma FX is improve a more realistic way of training that we can get back to the soldiers.
And a new indoor range changes the way the Army Reserve and local police officers train in American Samoa.
Samoa civilian police force get trained up and get certified on their weapon.
Plus, dozens of soldiers test their strength and push their limits at this year's Army Reserve Best Warrior competition.
You gotta stay engaged, and you gotta be proficient in all your tasks and drills.
Also, a town in Guatemala gets assistance from reserve soldiers during Beyond the Horizon.
Much more than just a local clinic.
I consider the guy a brother, really.
These stories and more ahead on this edition of Army Reserve Today. Welcome to Army Reserve Today. I'm Sergeant First Class Jeremiah Richardson.
And I'm Specialist Maria Casnero. Thanks for joining us. Global Medic is such an important exercise for the Army Reserve medical field.
It creates an intense environment where soldiers are placed in realistic scenarios that test their ability to react in high-pressure situations. This year's exercise at Fort Hunter Liggett continued to push the boundaries in Army training.
My name is Sergeant Robert Nicholas. I'm with the 7304th out of San Antonio, Texas. So currently I'm in Fort Hunter Liggett in California, and what we're really doing is the E&E cell, so the mannequin, I guess you could say. And what we do is we present casualties to these caches to kind of test their limits and just see how, not only how their treatments are, but how their communications are, their logistics, just the overall patient care.
I need a chest dressing to put over this wound on the thigh. Can't wrap it.
What really adds to the training, what benefits of the training is the Trauma FX and the Simman 3Gs. So the Trauma FX are both share mostly like what you'll see downrange, a lot of IEDs, so we have a lot of amputations, shrapnels, GSWs, or gunshots, right? And what we can do with these Trauma FX is we can replicate a more intense, realistic version of those injury sets.
I need to listen to see if he's got any kind of pneumo.
So we can do, on top, if we add moulage, we can do realistic injury sets, and on top of that, we can monitor. So we can control the vitals, control what the injury sets are. So if we want to drop pneumos, hemos, right, which relatively be the same, we can drop those. If we want to close that airway, force intubation, what we can really do here with those Trauma FX is improve a more realistic way of training that we can get back to the soldiers.
Military police detention operations range from securing prisoners of war to taking care of displaced civilians. Our own Master Sergeant Michel Serret recently followed Army Reserve military units at a combat support training exercise.
We're very rarely in the office. We're very rarely doing PowerPoint projection. We're out there in the field. We're training in our warrior skill level tasks. It's rough, it's tough, we're adaptable, and we're very resilient. It's one of those things that you have to be cut out for, such as detainee operations, going out on convoys, escorting VIP personnel. Understand that you're going to come in and you may be on a 12-hour shift, a 14-hour shift, and you know your QRF just responded and you don't necessarily have the team that you need to, but there's another VIP that's either approaching or getting ready to leave the wire. You have to have that ability to keep pushing forward, that motivation to keep moving.
Military police soldiers have to be tough. They have to be able to deploy and mobilize very quickly and be able to operate in austere environments. And the soldiers out here training are doing just that. We're in a mountainous area. They are setting up tents, they're digging the trenches, all while engaging the enemy and actually building a detention facility as well.
The establishment of a theater detention facility is hard work. They're pounding stakes day in and day out. They're also running thousands of meters of concertina wire to ensure the safety of the enemy prisoners of war. Lethality still plays a role in what we do day to day. We still have to get to the fight. We still have to defend ourselves during the fight. And the overall lethality of the Army itself, getting the enemy's prisoners of war off the battlefield or the displaced civilians off the battlefield allows for those combatant commanders to get after what they do, and that's bring it to the enemy.
Specifically with detention operations, we don't operate in a vacuum. We are in daily interaction with these other specialties in the execution of the mission. For maneuver units, or the units who are closer to the front lines and fighting our battles, We have to free up their ability to move around and do their mission.
It's very possible that the next conflict we find ourselves in will be a large-scale peer-on-peer conflict that could result in large numbers of enemy prisoners of war.
When they take enemy prisoners of war or displaced civilians, we want to move them away from the front lines into a secure area. So military police as a branch, that is one of our major missions, is to ensure that freedom of maneuver for those combat units.
People don't understand how well-rounded MPs are. You're not just detention operations or combat support or law enforcement. You need to be good in all those aspects. And there's very few MOSs that have that same requirement. We went from doing this in the cold in Iowa in February to doing this in the 90-degree heat in 400 Liggett in just a couple months.
Always be ready so you don't have to get ready at a moment's notice. The pace picks up very fast. We're at combat support, so anything can hit us at one time. You have to be ready for everything. They really love to be part of the fight. When you love what you do, your attitude and your demeanor while you're out here in theater, it gives you that level of endurance.
While most of us are spending our summers relaxing, soldiers from all around the U.S. competed in the U.S. Army Reserve Best Warrior Competition.
The grueling 5-day competition left 60-plus warriors from all around the Army Reserve tired but grateful to share the experience.
Reserve soldiers are making a bang at the U.S. Army Reserve Best Warrior Competition at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The soldiers rush from event to event in a grueling competition which tests their ability in physical fitness, soldier skills, military knowledge, and resilience.
There's just one standard for the grading. We get together, we discuss what we want to do, we pick that one standard, and that's what we run with. So it doesn't matter who's grading what event, there's only one way we do it.
At the end of the week, the soldiers' scores in each event are tallied to determine which soldier will represent the U.S. Army Reserve in the U.S. Army Best Warrior Competition. Despite the high stakes, the soldiers work together to overcome any obstacle in their way.
It's a different type of competition. I mean, they're moving around, but we're all in it together, we're all motivated, we're all having a good time.
For the U.S. Army Reserve, I'm Sergeant John Barry.
A typical range day for reserve soldiers in American Samoa normally requires a long flight to Hawaii in order to qualify, but now a new indoor range allows them to stay home and gives the local police force a place to train as well. Here's more on the story.
Behind me is about the most impressive facility that I have seen. And it's built for the sons and daughters and the soldiers of the Army Reserve here in American Samoa.
This is the first one being built by the U.S. Army Reserve, and very excited. It is in my command's area of operations in the Pacific in American Samoa. This particular range, we're going to allow our soldiers to train right on site. American Samoa, per capita, has more volunteers for the United States Army than any other region in the United States. And we have a very large footprint in terms of personnel over in American Samoa. However, to get our soldiers combat ready, they need to be able to live fire their small arms weapons. For the Army Reserve in American Samoa, in order to do that, it costs the American taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars to ship entire companies from American Samoa, fly them over, keep them overnight over in Schofield Barracks here in Hawaii in order to get them trained. And of course, that's time away for those soldiers away from their families. By building this MSAR and locating it right in American Samoa, we can conduct the training right in American Samoa. We can keep our soldiers integrated with their families, integrated with their community. So this is a very, very exciting thing. It's going to help increase unit readiness and actually reduce costs to the American taxpayer.
It's important for us as soldiers. Like, we don't have to fly overseas, like to shoot and spend our time away from our families. But now that we have a range, like, we get to spend more time with our families and we get to shoot from home.
For some one community, most likely for some of us, our family will always need us. So being away from them is kind of hard sometimes.
Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire.
In addition to these benefits, though, we're also very excited that we're going to be partnering with the American Samoa Police Department. Right now, because there are no firing ranges in American Samoa, there's nowhere for the American Samoa police to train on their weapons, just as we can't with our weapons in the U.S. Army. So by partnering with the American Samoa Police Department, we're also going to help the American Samoa civilian police force get trained up and get certified on their weapon. So this is a win-win situation.
For the American Samoa soldiers, past and present, you spoke, you told us what you wanted here, and the Army Reserve listened, and they invested in you. And I want you to enjoy your new range. Hua?
The Army Reserve participates in humanitarian work all over the world. This year at Beyond the Horizon, Specialist Brandon Pays and Specialist Pierre Meade, who born thousands of miles apart, find themselves in the same town in Pennsylvania, heading to Guatemala to build a medical clinic.
One is from Guatemala City.
Let's do it.
The other from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Both moved to the United States when they were just 10 years old. Both wound up at Chambersburg High School in Pennsylvania.
We have to cut some from here.
And now best friends and building a medical clinic together in Tejoques as members of the 358th Engineer Company.
It's always competition and challenging between me and him, that's for sure.
It's really nice to have that person to always push you.
Constantly pushing each other to be better, to work harder. Their efforts have not gone unnoticed.
They have been probably one of my best productive teams since I've been here on ground. You know, and it doesn't matter where I send them, what I tell them to do, they just do it. They don't complain and they just drive on.
Long, hard days in the sun can take their toll.
I mean, at first we were all burnt.
But specialists Brandon Pice and Pierre Meade found a way to make that sun beat down just a bit less.
He's a comedian. He's always making me laugh. He says the things that you wouldn't normally hear. But it's really fun. He makes the job a lot easier.
I can only imagine if I came out to work with someone else. I'd still be efficient, but he'd just be like, man, another day, laying block. But with him, we're always cracking jokes, always making me laugh, so days goes by super fast.
Born 1,200 miles apart.
Oh, my bad.
Now, just a few feet away from each other, building much more than just a local clinic.
I consider the guy a brother, really.
Reporting from Tejoques, Guatemala, for the 372nd MPAD, I'm Army Sergeant David Graves.
That's always inspiring to see.
It definitely is. Well, coming up next, we have more on Beyond the Horizon, so stay with us after this break.
Man, I can't wait to hit these rapids today.
Yeah, water should be high with all this rain.
Man, you're not gonna take your life jacket?
No, I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
All right.
Always wear your life jacket. They don't call it life for nothing.
Welcome back. And our next Beyond the Horizon story, Army Reserve engineers make a lifelong difference in the community.
The 990th Vertical Engineers, part of Task Force Rise, are building up a new addition to Los Olivos.
It's Task Force Rise, so we're making it rise.
They're adding a maintenance shop so locals can learn to work on vehicles. The soldiers understand how important an education can be.
A lot of us are taking pride in what we're doing because what we're doing actually, you know, it's going to stand for something. It's going to be a place where people can come, get a good education.
But before they can complete this important engineering project, they have an obstacle to face.
Mud, it gets tricky. It's a lot of the rain that we've been getting. Now we have this big mud pit. A lieutenant fell in it, that was funny. The other day we had a soldier, she fell in up to her knees, she had to get pulled out. Master Sergeant fell in it, that was funny. It's been fun dealing with the muck. I mean, you gotta laugh about it.
But the mud isn't stopping them.
This project is important to the Los Olivos community. The education's important. We're gonna be able to allow them to teach more people in the community.
So in spite of mud trying to weigh them down, this team will rise to the occasion and in the process, raise the community. Reporting for the 372nd MPAD, I'm Sergeant First Class Daniel Sullivan.
Guardian Response is a massive multi-branch training exercise that focuses on preparing soldiers to operate at any level of a national emergency. Service members, first responders, and federal authorities prepare to respond to chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear attacks. We take a look at the value of this mission and the impact it's having on soldiers.
The purpose of Guardian Response and the similar exercise Vibrant Response is to bring local, state, and federal organizations together as a team to respond to national crisis. Guardian Response is part of a national insurance policy which must be in place, but with the hopes of never needing to be used, however always being ready to respond at a moment's notice in the event of a national emergency.
When we're training our soldiers, we want to put them in the most stressful situations in the worst case scenario, so if they train to that high level standard, they can handle a lower level response. So if they can operate in this environment, they can operate in any environment. It's all environmentals.
Guardian Response enables local, state, and federal emergency first responders to know and learn each other's roles and to be able to work effectively as a team. U.S. Army Reserve soldiers from across the nation actively engaged in Guardian Response while training at Muscatatuck Urban Training Center, Indiana, must quickly and effectively learn to adapt to a constantly changing environment and be a ready force to protect the people of the United States in a time of crisis.
In addition to being the 78th Division Commander, my role here in this exercise is to be the exercise director and ensure that we're providing the right stressors on the force here training and that they're getting the required number of reps to meet that intent so they're ready to go.
So today we have 3 task forces we were asked by the incident commander. We're responding to several casualties with different types of injuries, and we're here to provide casualty decon support as well as seaburn reconnaissance, treatment, triage. So there is a lot of processes in place. This is our 3rd time operating with this group specifically. We received our mission officially at 07 this morning, and from there we respond and we have to be on the ground and operational within 2.5 hours from that site operation. So there's numerous pieces that go into play.
Helton for your last name?
I think it provides a real aspect of like realism, like this could truly be your family walking through the line. And it provides motivation. A lot of our soldiers are brand new to the Army, the unit, they're very young. So they watch the news, see these issues that go on, and see how easy it could be. So I think it applies a certain level of importance to the soldiers as well.
I'll be running off now. In our next story, Army Reserve pilots help out during Operation Red Flag in Flagstaff, Arizona. Pilots assist the Air Force with their mission and face some new challenges along the way.
We're out here in support of Red Flag Rescue 1, helping out the Air Force with their important missions out here for personnel recovery.
Yeah, for Red Flag Rescue, we have a point of contact with the Air Force and the Navy, and they would come to us mostly with troop movement, but they use us a lot for last-minute missions. So, flying out to Pendleton to get parts last minute, or some PJs need to go up to Flagstaff because suddenly they found out with the weather they're not going to be able to jump. So we've helped them fill those gaps that they have so that they can complete their mission. We don't get to fly out in this area too often, so we definitely It's challenging because we have so many short distance flights, and down here in Tucson we're at 2,000 feet going to Flagstaff at 7,000 feet. There's a lot of technical challenges involved in that. So the flight planning is much different. We've also flown trainers since we're out here, taking advantage of that, and flown to a lot of mountainous airports. The Army definitely prepared me. I mean, if you can go through Army flight school, you can go through any flight school with that confidence. So the Army has allowed me to fly different aircraft with different people in different geographical locations that I can then take back to other pilots I fly with, and the same on the civilian side. I fly a totally different mission set, and we share those stories and experiences. You really become an expert aviator. So it's definitely been a growing experience.
Don't go away. Coming up after the break, our best warriors are tested in a stress shoot. Stay tuned.
How many letters? 5 letters. Just think about, what am I doing right now? Smile. Smile? Uh-huh. This is so easy.
You're running late, and your path is blocked by water crossing the road. It doesn't look that deep, so you decide to drive through it. Bad decision. And it may be your last.
If you do happen to be caught in a rip current, stay calm. It won't pull you under. It'll just pull you away from shore. If you try to fight the rip current and swim against it, you'll just get worn out. Instead, float. If you're a good swimmer, swim parallel to shore until you've cleared the pull of the rip current. Swim with the waves, allowing them to push you to shore. If you can, wave and yell to get the attention of lifeguards and people on shore to let them know you need help. If you're on shore and see someone in trouble in a rip current, call for help. If a lifeguard is not available, throw in something that floats, but don't try to be a hero and make the rescue yourself. Even trained lifeguards only attempt a rescue using a flotation device. Rip currents can be dangerous, but if you know your options, survey your situation, and stay calm, you can stay safe and continue to have fun in the surf, sand, and sun.
Welcome back. During Army Reserve Best Warrior competitions, our soldiers face early days and long nights. And when the stress shoot events come around, well, the name says it all. Specialist Joshua Talley brings us more with the story.
Stand by!
My name is I'm Sergeant Torres Vasquez. I'm from El Paso, Texas, representing the 410th Defense Battalion. Since it was a stress shoot, once you start going up the stairs and your heart starts pumping faster, it's harder to focus on the actual shooting. But after you calm down a little bit, you get on your back and your feet, and you're good. Honestly, I was just trying to get the targets. I was just trying to rush and trying to make a good time. I know it's a time event, so I was just trying to do the best I could do. And I've done many ranges in the past, but this one was something very different, very new, and it's very fun. That's the main thing. It was really, really fun. So it's something that I'm enjoying. It's fun. It's really tough, but it's an experience that I'm gonna remember the rest of my life for sure. I did a couple of competitions when I was active duty, and this has been literally the hardest one. But I've done a lot of things that I've never done in the infantry side, in the active duty side. No matter reserve, National Guard, or active duty, you're still a soldier. So you got to stay engaged, and you got to be proficient in all your tasks and drills. So I love it. Well, I'm just so fun, so happy to be here, and I'm hoping to win. I'm doing my best to get the title, so we're gonna keep our head up and keep doing our best. That's all. We have great soldiers competing, so that's making the competition way more interesting. I'm loving it. All these guys are like legit. They're the best of the best, so they're showing that right now. So that helps me to do my best.
At the end of this week-long competition, 2 winners emerged. The non-commissioned officer of the year is Sergeant Joshua Smith of the 108th Training Command. The soldier of the year is Specialist Colin George of the 200th Military Police Command. They will go on to represent the Army Reserve at the Department of Army level of competition. Best of luck to them both. Army transportation units have been the backbone of our military's success throughout its history. The Army Reserve provides much of this capability to the Department of Defense, so keeping our skills sharp is critical. The 238th Transportation Company uses their field exercises to refine their capabilities throughout the year.
Nothing happens until something moves, and we're the one who moves it. My unit is in charge of the outgoing cargo that is coming into the unit and to the CSTX. So every piece of equipment that came into the ongoing earlier at the beginning of this STX, we are now going to outbound train it to take it back to their home station, and it's been a real pleasure to do it because it's more training, more real life scenario, because we do have the FTX, but then we also have a real life scenario mission where we have to bring everyone's equipment home properly and track it properly. These machines are important because one thing we're taught in transportation is nothing happens until we work, because a unit can't get their equipment until we unload it or load it on somewhere else. So those machines are very important to the Army because no one will get their equipment unless we move. My success has transferred over because this MOS is all logistics. And the job that I got in the civilian world because of the Army is a logistics job, working with numbers and moving product around for a company. And the Army is the only reason why I think I got that job.
Public affairs specialists are trained in the skill of documenting and telling the Army Reserve story. Each exercise or competition brings with it a unique group of soldiers, and that's when PAO soldiers take the opportunity to turn on the camera. Specialist Kylie Woodford gives us an insight on her experience.
I want 2 guys in the hatches back here ready to fight.
My name is Specialist Kylie Woodford. I'm a public affairs specialist with the 300th Mobile Public Affairs Detachment in Fort Gillem, Georgia. I'm here participating in my first annual training here for Exercise Maple Resolve. The scenario today has been such a lifelike setup, from the village that was constructed to the movements of all the soldiers that were participating. Just an incredible experience, an opportunity to see what it looks like or what it could look like being deployed, and being able to use your camera skill sets and your photojournalist abilities and questioning and journaling, being able to put it all together and make one complete package that tells the Army story and tells the soldier story. I've enjoyed my experience and I really like what I do. When you're at school training for a public affairs specialist occupation with the Army, you learn things in a classroom-like environment, but when you're on the field, you have to move around, you have to rely on your partners that you're working with, like working with our Canadian ally to tell us, where the best places are to be or to go to get the shots and who we're looking for. So you have to be lethal, capable, and combat ready, even in the photojournalist side. You have to make sure that you're getting the angles to tell the story. Every day is a learning experience. Working together with our Canadian allies provides just a greater insight on how to produce photojournalist materials and broadcast journalism materials that can be shared with the public. So working together and seeing another side of things is extremely helpful, and I think it's just essential in our interoperability with our Canadian allies.
That's all for this edition of Army Reserve Today. I'm Army Sergeant First Class Jeremiah Richardson.
And I'm Specialist Maria Casnero. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks for watching.